Welcome back to Two Pretty Good Bad Men, an Alias Smith & Jones podcast. I'm your host Tabitha, and today we are covering Season 2, Episode 19, The Biggest Game in the West. This is Roger Davis's first episode as Hannibal Hayes, due to Pete Duell's tragic death during production. It's tough to watch, I'm not gonna lie. The episode was shot at the end of December and the beginning of January in 1971 and 1972, and it aired February 3rd, 1972. The story and teleplay were by Roy Huggins, and the episode was directed by Alexander Singer. We have some returning characters this week. Some Devil's Hole gang members. Dennis Fimple is back as Kyle, and Bill McKinney is back as Lobo. Also returning is actor Ford Rainey as Collins. I believe he's meant to be the same Collins as the agent in The Man Who Broke the Bank at Red Gap, but even so, Rainey has been in several episodes by this point. We have Jim Backus as Joseph P. Sterling. You probably know him as Mr. Howell from Gilligan's Island, a show that I adored as a child, and it still holds up, damn it. If not that, then you might know him as the father of James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. And if not either of those, which if not, what are you even doing with your life, then as the voice of Mr. Magoo. Did you also know he made the top 40 in 1958 with a novelty song called Delicious? Well, it's not really a song, but I listened to it and honestly, I'm into it. I kind of can't stop listening to it. He was in other films like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, Pete's Dragon, and one of the Ma and Pa Kettle movies. He also had a couple more short-lived shows too. The Jim Backus Show from 1960, about a guy who runs a struggling news service, and an adaptation of Blondie in 1968. Backus suffered from Parkinson's disease later in his life, and he passed away in 1989 at age 76. Next up is Chill Wills as Bigsby. He started out as a vaudeville performer, and it was while he was doing that he met his wife Betty. He formed a musical group called Chill Wills and the Avalon Boys. The group, for whatever reason, ended up appearing as their musical act in a bunch of Western films. It's an odd place for a band to find success, but there are many roads to success. Eventually, Wills decided that he didn't need the rest of those stupid Avalon Boys and disbanded the group. From there, he became a prominent Western actor. He was nominated for an Oscar for his part in The Alamo, but according to IMDb, so take with a grain of salt, he led a really bad and humiliating campaign for that award, which he ended up losing. He was in movies like Giant, Meet Me in St. Louis, and The Yearling. Oh, The Yearling. He had one short-lived series called Frontier Circus, which I think the title speaks for itself about what that's about. It does sound like a cool premise, though. Oh, and he named his children Jill and Will. Jill Wills and Will Wills. Why would he be so cruel? He passed away in 1978 at age 76. And finally we have Rod Cameron as Sheriff Grimley. He was born in Canada and initially wanted to be a Mountie. Once he presumably realized that all cops are bastards, he turned his sights to acting. He struggled in New York and Hollywood for a while before starring in some serials and low-budget westerns. He had his own comic series for a while about a fictional version of himself that was put out by Fawcett Comics, and that ran for 20 issues. He had a few series that lasted a couple of seasons. City Detective, which ran from 1953 to 1955, State Trooper, which ran from 56 to 59, and Coronado 9, which ran from 60 to 61. He also guest starred on shows like Laramie, The Loretta Young Show, Burke's Law, Bonanza, The Virginian, and Adam 12. Here's a fun story about him. He divorced his wife and then immediately married her mother. What in the deliverance is that about? He passed away in 1983 at age 73. This episode and an episode coming up were inspired by the episode of Maverick called Rage for Vengeance, via the combination of poker and counterfeit money. Okay, now let's try and get through this one the best we can, shall we? I really don't have a problem watching Roger's episodes, except this one. It's just awkward and sad to watch, and not that it's his fault, but just knowing how unhappy and uncomfortable everyone was really makes it hard to get through. But I will do it for all 5 of you who listen. We do have a sneak peek this week. That was like some Seuss rhyming there. We are in the Bank of Lordstown watching our boys crack open the safe in the dead of night. Hayes is carefully trying to open the safe, but Kid keeps needling him. You're not helping, Kid. Just be quiet. And he's got it. The safe is open. And suddenly Kid's tune is changed to, "Oh, you're such a genius, Hayes. Talk about a fair weather friend." And credits. New credits, of course, with a new narrator. And all of the scenes just reshot with Roger instead of Pete, and it is ghoulish. They just straight up made Ben reshoot the opening in the exact same way with this new person. It is the weirdest, most horrible feeling watching it. I hate it. Couldn't you have just had the new narrator explain the entire premise instead of putting Ben and Roger through that? Ugh. Anyway, the new narrator is a man named Ralph Story. His list of IMDb credits is small, but apparently he was very well known as a local TV personality in LA for like half a century. He hosted local shows like Ralph Story's Los Angeles and AM Los Angeles. He passed away in 2006 at age 86 from emphysema. I'm not sure how he got this gig, but he's got a cool backstory. Oh, and Ben Murphy gets top billing now, which he deserves, let's be fair here. After the credits, we rewind to the boys resting on the side of a road. And new Hayes has a mustache. I don't like it. Suddenly a bag gets tossed from a passing coach directly onto them. Upon opening it, it's full of money. The kid is ecstatic, although Hayes examines it more closely and announces that it's counterfeit. Side note, I do want to commend both Ben and Roger for their performances here, because if you were just like flipping through channels and knew nothing about this show, it's not like you would know that anything was wrong behind the scenes. Roger's really hard on himself for this scene now. He thinks he should have reacted more when the bag gets thrown on him, but he said he was in such a daze through the whole thing, he just didn't. But honestly, I think it was fine. I mean, Hayes is sort of half asleep, so it makes sense that it would take him a minute to get his bearings. They figure out there's nothing that they can do with the money, so they decide to burn it. Because Kid thinks that would be fun. Okay, Pyro Boy, calm down. As they burn the first stack, Hayes gets an idea of how they can actually use the money. Oh, Chill Wills gets the special guest star credit this week. But he named his kids Jill and Will. He doesn't deserve a special guest star credit. They ride into town on a stage with Hayes in his nice clothes and Kid in his filthy street rat clothes. Hayes addresses him like he's his servant, calling him Jones. And then there is a shot of Hayes going into the hotel, but it's from the back and it's very obviously Pete and not Roger. He was smaller than Roger and his hair was darker. It's easy to miss, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Kid follows behind carrying most of the luggage. Hayes is checking them in and calls Kid his assistant, and that he'll have to register for him. What are you saying? That he can't write in this little work of fiction you're putting on? They go over to the bank and meet Sterling. Hayes says he wants to put $250,000 in the bank, but he doesn't want to deposit it. He just wants to put it in the vault for safekeeping. Now, if Sterling had a monocle, it would be poppin'. But Hayes insists. He claims that he's looking for good cattle land and that his assistant, Mr. Jones, just happens to be an expert on that subject. Sterling agrees but wants to have supper with Hayes sometime to discuss capitalism. Sexy. The next day, Hayes and Kid ride out with a man named Bixby to look at some cattle land. It's all part of the grand plan, I suppose. They do this with some other rich men in Lordstown, too. Back at the hotel, Hayes is thankfully shaving his mustache off because it, quote, makes me look sinister, end quote. Now, this happened because Roger had the mustache for another job he'd been doing, filmed a few scenes with it, but then when Huggins saw the dailies, he was like, that thing on your face has gotta go, because it makes you look sinister. That's really harsh. I wouldn't say sinister, but he does look better without it. Anyway, Kid laments that they've been with all these wealthy ranchers and nobody has mentioned this poker game. What poker game, you may ask? Why, the Lordstown game that we told them about back in their outlaw days. The titular biggest game in the West. Wheat had been wanting to rob that game for years, and Hayes and Kid have talked him out of it several times. Kid's starting to suspect that the game isn't even real. But just then, two of the ranchers, Bixby and Halbertston, come in wanting to talk to Hayes in private. And guess what? They invite him to the game. It goes from Saturdays at 3 p.m. to Sundays at 3 a.m. That sounds horrible. Hayes asks to think it over, but when they leave, he celebrates. He's in. Now, Roger couldn't really make the role of Hayes his own this episode because of the reused footage of the guest stars they'd already shot, so Roger had to get as close to his peak performance as he could, which kind of sucks for him. So I feel like we can't really judge him as Hayes based on this episode. Anyway, that Saturday, Hayes sits in for the game, and out in the saloon, Kid is playing his own game for like 25 cents. It's really adorable, and that's all he should be allowed to play for. It cuts back and forth from his little game to Hayes' huge stakes game. I really like the editing. That night, Hayes wakes the kid up and is so excited to talk about how much money he's won. $14,000. And Kid's like, let's go to China. China? 2 episodes ago, you didn't even want to go to South America, and now you want to go to China? The hell are you going to do in China? Hayes wants to stay another week and play another game. So they wait out the week. When next Saturday comes, unfortunately, Kyle and Lobo are watching from afar. Kyle says that Wheat was right about the game all along. So, naturally, the game gets interrupted by the Devil's Hole gang, and they recognize Hayes and draw some attention to it. Kyle says, "Hey, Wheat, look!" I love that they say that, like Wheat's there. Wheat is not there, I promise you that. Earl Holliman has better things to do with his time. But they're all wearing masks, so they get away with it. They take all the money and hightail it. Hayes, you had to get greedy. You could have left with $14,000, but no. That wasn't good enough for you. And Kid makes these exact same points back at the hotel. Hayes is afraid of how long it will take the other poker players to figure out that Wheat must mean Wheat Carlson, the Devil's Hole gang member. After all, how many people named Wheat are there? Also, Hayes is saying wheat like Stewie Griffin. He's saying wheat. He's putting all his emphasis on the H. Wheat. Stop saying it like that, it's bothering me. Kids suggest they just leave town. Hayes says they can't leave the counterfeit money, which they can't get their hands on until Monday. After a few tense moments, Hayes gets an idea. He tells Kid to leave town, find the gang, and get them to give the money back. Well, they can keep the $35,000 that Hayes had, but they have to give back the rest. Kid says there is no way they're going to do that, which I'm inclined to agree with, but Hayes talks him into going and trying anyway. The next day, Kid rides out and Sterling calls Hayes into his office. Sterling has figured out that the $250,000 is counterfeit. Hayes insists he didn't do anything illegal because he didn't deposit or spend it. Sterling says it's illegal just to have it. But he lets Hayes know that he can be bought for only $15,000. He's got until Wednesday to deliver. The sheriff comes in to question Hayes. He asks what the name was that was shouted during the robbery, Weed or Wheat? Hayes is like, Weed. Name was definitely Weed. Yep, couldn't have been Wheat. Oh, excuse me. Couldn't have been Wheat. Kid finds the gang, but Wheat's not around, and Kyle's like, we can't make a decision without Wheat. He tells us when to go pee. Kid manages to make a convincing argument that some of the richest ranchers in the West will be pissed off and looking for them, since Kyle, dum-dum that he is, called out Wheat's name in front of them. It's only a matter of time before they find out it was the Devil's Hole gang who robbed them. Plus, Kyle is a softie. He says they'd be doing it to help Hayes and the kid. They're besties. Meanwhile, the sheriff is going through all the wanted posters. It's Wednesday, and Hayes has to tell Sterling that he can't meet his price yet. He needs more time. Sterling's like, too bad, so sad. He called in the feds. He's got until they show up to get him his money. Kid gets back into town, and the gang went for it. They returned the money. Aww, Kyle's good people. I mean, sort of. Wheat will probably be pissed, but he'll get over it. Who can stay mad at Kyle? Also, does this mean that Kyle is like second in command? Because I love him, but that's probably not a great choice, like, in terms of business. And then Hayes says, quote, cousin, you're all right. Okay. More proof that they're related. What is this, like the 4th episode they brought it up? And we're back at the sneak peek. The guys break into the bank. Now, the book points out that Roger and Pete do the safe cracking differently. Pete would put his ears to the safe as if listening for the tumblers. Roger touches it with his fingers as if feeling for the tumblers. While they're doing this, the sheriff comes across Wheat Carlson's poster. Aw, shit. Hayes gets the safe open and they take the $250,000 out. The next day, the boys are checking out. Sterling stops them and is like, "Hey, where's my money? A federal agent is about to pop through the door." And Hayes is just like, "I have no idea who you even are, bro. Get out of my way." Sterling waits for the agent anyway. He meets them on the street and leads them over to the hotel to stop Hayes and Kid from leaving. He takes them right up to their room, and the boys are just more than happy to let them in. Agent Collins confronts them with Sterling's claims. And Hayes is like, "Oh my stars, counterfeit? Say it ain't so. Well, we should go over to the bank right now and get this settled." They go over to the bank, pull out the money, and Collins goes to test it with these little vials of colored sand that I guess do something, but it doesn't really matter because he doesn't end up using them anyway. He just looks at the money through a magnifying glass. He concludes that the money is legitimate, and he hopes that Sterling has a good explanation for all this. Hayes, being the good guy that he is willing to let the whole matter drop. Agent Collins is going to charge Sterling personally for his travel expenses. "That's what you get, Mr. Howell. What would Lovey say?" Before they both leave, Sterling asks Kid how he did it. And Kid's just like, "Did what?" We see the sheriff again finding Hayes and Kid's wanted posters. At the hotel, Kid asks if everything went all right. Sure did. They're ready to leave town on the next stage, but the sheriff and his men are about to storm their room. Luckily, completely off screen, Kid met a girl at the saloon who comes in and warns them about it. Okay, great. I guess we didn't need to see that, but still. They forget the stage and take off on horseback. Agent Collins is on the stage and he discovers that the counterfeit money is now in his bag. And the two ladies on the stage with him are going to need their smelling salts. They are scandalized. Come next Saturday and we're back at the poker game. The sheriff comes up to them and says that Hayes and Curry were the ones who stole the money. And Hayes sat in on their poker game, in fact. But don't worry, they'll be in custody before dark. But when the men enter the game room, they find that all of their money is right back where it came from. The guys have hopped a train, meanwhile. Kid's bummed because they're just as broke as they were at the start, but Kid just happened to find a good $100 bill on the floor of the bank when they were robbing it. Oh well, knowing them, they'll have lost it by the time they get off the train. In the tag, all the ranchers call back to the sheriff and tell him to call off the search for Hayes and Curry. Their money is back and they're withdrawing their robbery complaint. The guys left them a note assuring them all the money is back where it belongs. The note is read over the boys sleeping in the train car. Aww. The end. Oh man, I did it. I got through this episode. It's not a bad episode at all. It's just very difficult to look at it objectively. If I try, I would say it's a decent mid-range episode. It's always fun seeing the Devil's Hole gang back, and this might actually be the last time we see them, that I can remember anyway. Once again, Hayes is very clever in how he thinks their way out of these situations that look hopeless. He is brilliant. On a shallow note, Ben looked especially handsome in this episode. The line of the episode goes to Sterling. When the guys first come to him with the money and don't want to deposit it, he says, quote, "It isn't decent. It isn't Christian." And the episode goes to Hayes. He did screw up being greedy and insisting they stay in Lordstown another week, but he does get them out of it too. Next time on Alias Smith & Jones, the boys head to Tombstone and meet Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. Research for this podcast comes from the wonderful book Alias Smith & Jones, The Story of Two Pretty Good Bad Men, by Sandra K. Segala and Joanne M. Bagwell. Thanks for listening.